Welcome, everyone. Today, we are getting into a resource that's really designed to shift how we look at opportunity, how we think about growth. We've spent some quality time with the Breakthrough Bulletin, specifically their issue on the wealth mindset. It's quite sharp material. And, it really operates from this idea that changing your bank balance, that starts with changing your internal story.
That really is the mission here.
hmm
I mean, this isn't your typical advice about, say, budgeting better or chasing some quick win. It's more about pulling out these actionable insights. Insights that genuinely help in, as they put it, reshaping the way you think. The idea is that opportunities, real abundance, well, they naturally expand to meet the vision you hold for your life. So we're aiming to shift from feeling stuck financially to seeing real possibility.
And the way it's laid out is perfect for what we do. It gives us 3 clear, actionable tips you can use right away. Then 2 questions that make you think, challenge your assumptions. Plus 1, a pretty big engaging activity, and it wraps up with a really potent nugget of wisdom. So the core idea is moving from limitation to possibility. Let's jump into that first.
Right, because the absolute foundation for thinking about wealth, it starts with facing the stories we're telling ourselves.
Which takes us straight to tip 1, challenge your scarcity stories. We all seem to have this internal soundtrack playing, don't we? That voice saying, oh, there's never enough time or never enough money. And critically, the big one, I can't afford that. These thoughts often get planted early on, maybe from family or just the culture around us, and they end up acting like this invisible ceiling on what we think is possible.
Exactly. And that's where you have to be, well, almost ruthless in editing your own thoughts. Because if you let those thoughts run wild, unchecked, they tend to become your reality. A wealth mindset, it really demands recognizing those old scripts, those limiting beliefs, and then consciously rewriting them.
Okay, but I feel like I need to pause here for a second, maybe play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Because this feels like where people might get, a bit stuck. Let's say I see a fantastic opportunity, maybe a certification program, costs $5,000. And my immediate thought is, I can't afford it. Isn't that just a fact based on my bank balance right now? How does reframing that actually help?
That's a really fair point. And the bulletin stresses this. The power isn't about pretending the money is there when it isn't. It's about changing the action that comes after the thought. So that knee-jerk reaction, I can't afford it, it acts like a full stop. It just shuts down the creative, problem-solving parts of your brain. Reframing it turns that period into a question mark. How can I create the resources I need to invest in this opportunity?
Okay. So that small shift, just going from a statement to a question, that's the aha moment you mentioned. It immediately kicks your brain into problem-solving mode, right? You stop feeling kind of helpless and start actually looking for options, maybe adjusting the budget, finding some side income, looking for payment plans, or even asking for support. You shift from just accepting it to actively seeking resources.
That's precisely the transformation. And the immediate activity they suggest here is all about building that awareness muscle. Keep a running list maybe just for the next few days of those scarcity statements you catch yourself saying or thinking, and then right away reframe each one. Turn it into a question focused on possibility. You're literally practicing redirecting those ingrained thought patterns.
That's really practical. Okay, so we've tackled the internal chat, the stories we tell ourselves. Now, let's move to how we actually interact with money out in the world. This goes nicely into tip 2, which kind of flips the usual advice. Invest in value, not just savings. Yeah, I think many of us are sort of programmed culturally to think wealth is all about cutting costs to the bone, saving aggressively, mostly driven by this deep fear of losing what little we have. Saving's important, obviously, but the bulletin argues it's not the whole picture.
Exactly. When you treat money like it's this finite resource that you have to hoard, your main focus becomes defense, avoiding loss. The bulletin authors emphasize that real wealth, it comes from strategic investment. They use this great analogy of planting seeds. You need to keep planting seeds in the people, skills, and opportunities that will multiply over time. It's about growth, not just preservation. And this changes everything about how you make spending decisions. So instead of just asking what's the cheapest way, the core question they suggest is this. Ask yourself, will this purchase add to my growth, opportunities, or long-term well-being? And here's the kicker. They say you should actually journal the answer before you make the purchase for accountability.
Let's flesh out that example you mentioned, the strategic investment, because we're not talking about like buying fancy clothes here. We're talking about deciding to invest in that, say, premium leadership program, even when there's a cheaper, more basic version available. The premium one costs more upfront, sure, but maybe it gives you access to a much better network, more advanced coaching, a credential that really boosts your market value.
Right. The return on investment isn't just a simple calculation. It's potentially exponential growth in your skills, your connections. You stop obsessing over the immediate cash going out and start thinking about the long-term potential for cash coming in. It's an investment in your future earning power.
So the micro step for this one is quite challenging in a
Right.
good way. The bulletin suggests pick one area this month. Could be software, a course, a tool, maybe even delegating something you hate doing, and consciously choose to spend on the highest value option, not just the cheapest. And then notice that feeling, that confidence that comes from spending intentionally on value.
And that feeling, that confidence, it leads perfectly into tip 3, speak the language of abundance. Because once you start making these value-based investments, your language needs to catch up and reflect that growth mindset.
It's subtle, isn't it? How often we casually say things like, oh, I'm broke, or we're struggling, or just barely getting by, maybe even joke about it. But the bulletin really points out how powerful our words are. They reinforce that scarcity thinking. They shape how we feel about money, even when we're not being totally serious.
Absolutely. It's a fundamental rewiring process. When you shift your language, you're actually training your subconscious mind to actively look for possibility, for growth. If you constantly talk about struggle, well, your mind will diligently find evidence to support that. But if you start declaring capability, your mind starts scanning for opportunities that match that declaration. So instead of saying something limiting like, I just don't see how we'll ever make enough for that goal, you start affirming a different reality. A really potent shift they suggest is something like, money flows to me when I'm aligned with my purpose. See how that reduces the internal friction, that stress or maybe even shame around money. It actively positions you to notice chances you might otherwise just filter out.
That difference feels profound, actually. The limiting language focuses on what's lacking outside of you, the resources, but the empowering language shifts the focus to your internal capacity to create or attract those resources.
Precisely. And the application here is straightforward but effective. Choose one money affirmation, one that really clicks with your values. Maybe something like, I am open to receiving high value for the value I provide. And say it out loud. Say it 3 times every morning. The material really emphasizes noticing how this simple act starts to shift your focus, your confidence level, especially when you face a financial choice later in the day.
Okay, great. So we've covered the 3 big actionable tips. Reframe the scarcity story, invest in value over just saving, and speak the language of abundance. Now let's shift gears slightly into the deeper work. These next 2 questions really dig beneath the surface.
Right? They force us to confront where our beliefs actually come from. The first question is a bit like an archaeological dig into our own past. What money belief did I inherit, and do I still want to keep it? Ugh. Think about those common sayings, right? Things we just absorb from family or culture. Money's the root of all evil, or you have to work twice as hard, or even just polite people don't discuss money. These become these deeply ingrained rules we live by. The crucial insight from the source material is that these inherited beliefs, they're like historical artifacts. They aren't your destiny. The second you start questioning them, you reclaim power over them.
That identification step is so important. The action step here is really clear. Write down maybe 3 money beliefs you know you picked up growing up. And for each one, ask yourself that tough question. Does this belief actually support me now? Does it support the person I'm trying to become? Or does it limit me? And if it limits you, you then have the conscious power to say, okay, I'm decommissioning this belief. Then the second big question, this one's more future-oriented. It directly challenges that core scarcity idea. If I truly trusted that money was a renewable resource, what would I do differently?
This is such a powerful reframe. Because scarcity thinking whispers that every dollar you spend is gone forever, like a loss from some finite pot. But this material suggests thinking of money more like energy. It needs to circulate, right? It regenerates. It gets exchanged to create value. It's not some static thing you just lock away in a vault. And the implication of truly believing that, it's huge. Trusting it's renewable doesn't mean being reckless, not at all. But it does mean making choices from a place of confidence, not fear or paralysis. If you genuinely believe more can be generated, you're probably more willing to take those calculated, aligned risks. Investing in that new tech for your business, hiring help, maybe taking the time to really perfect your service instead of just grabbing any client out of panic.
Okay, so to make that practical for listeners, the suggestion is identify one significant decision you've been putting off, mainly because of financial fear. Maybe it is delegating that task you dread, or finally buying that better software, or even taking time off for growth. Then, actively visualize. What choice would you make if you absolutely knew the resources would flow back, maybe even multiplied? That visualization itself can provide a kind of blueprint for more confident action down the line.
And that visualization, that planning, it leads us perfectly into the main comprehensive activity in the bulletin, the money mindset map. This is where we stop just talking about it and actually get our inner world down on paper. Make it tangible so we can change it.
Right. This map basically forces you to look at the whole tangled web. The inherited stuff, the things you learn, the conscious choices you've made about money. And the first step, which they say is often rushed but is critical, is to set intention. Just write down a clear, guiding statement for yourself. Something like, I make clear, confident, values-aligned financial decisions. That's your North Star for this exercise.
Then you get a big piece of paper and create 2 circles. Label one wealth now and the other wealth next. And that wealth now circle, that's for brutal honesty about your current state.
Okay, then comes the maybe slightly uncomfortable but cathartic part, brain dump and tagging. You list everything, every thought, feeling, physical sensation, behavior connected to money right now. And be specific, like my chest tightens when I check my bank balance, or I put off paying invoices, or I feel guilty buying a coffee. Then you tag each item. Inherited, I, learned L from your own experiences, or chosen, see conscious habits, and also mark its energy negative, neutral, or positive.
Right. Once that now circle is full, probably overflowing, you step back and spot the patterns. Highlight maybe the top 3 limiting patterns that jump out. Is it avoidance? Constant comparison? Using scarcity language? This is where the self-awareness really clicks in. You see your main self-sabotaging habits.
Then you move over to the wealth next circle. This is where you actively rewrite the belief. So if a pattern was, I delay financial decisions out of fear, the empowering replacement might be something like, I gather enough information efficiently and make timely financial decisions.
And critically, this is key. Every new belief needs to be anchored to a specific action. You attach action. So if your new belief is about recognizing your value, the concrete action might be, starting next week, I will raise my project rate by 5% on all new proposals. It has to be real.
Got it. And the final step, the one that helps make sure the new pattern actually sticks when you're stressed, create an if-then plan for your biggest trigger. So if your main trigger is anxiety about opening your banking app, your plan could be specific. If I feel anxious opening a banking app, then I will close my eyes, take 3 deep breaths, and only review yesterday's transactions, not the whole balance right now. It gives you a pre-decided, structured response to break that fear cycle.
Yeah, that whole detailed activity, it really bridges that gap, doesn't it? Between just having an abstract idea and actually changing your behavior in a measurable way. It's like doing an internal infrastructure upgrade.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's wrap up our exploration of the bulletin with its final, really powerful insight. The nugget of wisdom that kind of ties all of this together is richness is not about what you have, but how deeply you believe in your power to create more.
That quote really sums up the whole philosophy, doesn't it? It reframes richness entirely. It's not a static thing you possess like a pile of cash you need to guard. It's presented as a dynamic capability. It's about trusting your own ability, your ability to generate more ideas, spot more opportunities, create more income. When you trust that, you stop pouring all your energy into just defending what you already have. You naturally shift from just conserving to actively cultivating. When you start identifying as a creator, investing in your future becomes natural because you believe your output, your ability to create value is renewable.
So, perhaps the proactive thought we can leave you with today is this. As you go through your day, just notice. Notice where you might automatically default to a thought or an action based on scarcity. And instead of just reacting out of that old fear, pause. Ask yourself that powerful question. What can I create here? Because every intentional choice you make, using maybe some of these tips or insights, it becomes real-world proof of that growing creative power inside you. Well, this look into the Breakthrough Bulletin has certainly given us a practical system, from tweaking that inner dialogue all the way to mapping out concrete behavioral changes, to move towards building wealth with more clarity, more confidence. If this kind of structured step-by-step approach to valuable material resonates with how you like to learn and grow, we definitely encourage you to subscribe for more opportunities like this one. You'll find the links and all the details you need right there in the caption below.
Thank you so much for exploring these possibilities of abundance with us today.
Yes, thank you. We look forward to digging into more valuable material with you again very soon.